Hello there, my name is Sammy, and welcome to the next episode in my stream theory playthrough of, this will be the first episode in my playthrough of Half-Life 2 Episode 2, where I'll be playing the game live and also providing analysis and commentary as I go. So, haven't started the game yet, but it's essentially a continuation of my playthrough of the Half-Life 2 episodes. So I just finished Episode 1 in the last stream, the previous stream. I'm going to start up with Episode 2 now, and before I get into any more introductory details about the game itself, I think I'm just going to get straight into game. So I'm going to make sure I do a sound check, because very important. I did the sound check before, and it turned out that yeah, there was a problem, so I had to restart the stream anyway. Alright, sound check is good. That's why I always do it before I continue on with any stream. So while the game loads, I'm just gonna get this all set up. So start right from the beginning. Everything does look fairly good as we're going on here. So I'm gonna let the opening scenes play out, and then we can get right into the nitty-gritty, introducing the game and talking about it, discussing it. Playing it, of course. Alright, so no introductory cutscene, which is actually something a little different from the previous entries in the Half-Life 2 series. We get right into an interactive bit here, and I like how this is using this little scene here to bring us right into the experience. No sort of intro cutscene necessary. I think it's a very nice change of pace from those previous entries. Well, Half-Life 2, the main game, the big game, as well as Episode 1, they both started with a sort of introductory cutscene to bring us in. Here, where we're starting out with no prior details, no introductory scene, right into the action, right into controlling the game. And so this is serving as a sort of movement tutorial, just basic movements like jumping and moving around, and giving us a little environment to do that with, but also building a little bit of intrigue as what happened. We suddenly find ourselves in a precarious situation. We just have to figure it out. So if you played Half-Life 2 Episode 1, which you probably should have for playing Episode 2, you know that ended leaving City 17 on a train as the Citadel was blowing up, exploding. So naturally, the train derailed, and here we find ourselves in the wreckage. So I think they figured that we've played Episode 1, so no need for an introductory scene.
Well, we should keep moving. I'm sure the Combine haven't forgotten about us. I heard Vortigaunts a few minutes ago. Maybe they're still around. We've got a long way to go to find my dad. It'd be nice to have some extra help.
Of course, we have Alyx here. She survived the train derailment as well, and her little bit of dialogue there gives us essentially enough story information, enough setup to just get on with what we need to do. Of course, I don't think the game is wrong in assuming that we probably should have played Episode 1 before playing this experience. I don't see why anyone would want to play Episode 2 without playing Episode 1. Now, as far as playing the Half-Life 2 episodes without playing Half-Life 2, that's a little bit more reasonable, I think. Just because Half-Life 2 is an older game, it came out in 2004 versus the episodes came out in I think 2007. I know this one came out in 2007. I believe so. One came out a little bit before that. So maybe it's reasonable to assume that you might not have played the Half-Life 2 proper, maybe not even Half-Life 1. But as far as the episodes, if you're going to play Episode 2, I think there's no reason why you should not play episode 1 beforehand. So maybe this episode 2 is right in assuming that there is no introduction in terms of the story there isn't much introduction needed, because you probably did play the first episode.
The Citadel. What the hell is happening?
Those remains of what happened, well, the Citadel, after it exploded, created that portal. I mean, I believe the Combine intentionally created this sort of energy, spire of energy, sort of weird portal. So really cool looking things going on, I suppose. Get us into here. As far as our general situation around us, it's fairly quiet. We're not in super intense action like we were in the beginning of episode 1. But, you know, big events did happen at the end of episode 1, the explosion of the Citadel. And this is the result. And this is going to be our main, I would say, our main landmark, our point of reference to our location in the world, I suppose. So we're always going to... the Half-Life 2 games creators, the developers of it, those games like to give you this large point of reference. And in Half-Life 2 proper, that was the Citadel itself, and now it is, in episode 2, it is this, the wreckage, the portal that came out of after the Citadel exploded. This will always be the point of reference to your location. And that's, you know, serves its own purposes. I think I discussed it a little bit in episode 1. It lets you know how far you're traveling, and in Half-Life 2, it served as like the ultimate goal. You're going to eventually get to the Citadel. Here now, with the episodes, we are getting away from it, so it'll serve as our point of reference of how far we've come since we started, and we're going to get further and further away as we pursue our objectives. Alright, so that event there caused the train to finally collapse and then open up this this area here. We can move on. Of course, we have the gravity gun as our first main interactive, I don't want to say weapon, but interactive item to allow us to progress through the environment, interact with it. Much like the crowbar served in Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. Now we have the gravity gun as our new crowbar, just as a base way of interacting with the environment around us. Alright, so now that we have a quieter moment, got through some few story details, maybe some base level introductory details about Half-Life 2 Episode 2, just like I did for Half-Life 2 Episode 1. Half-Life 2 games are first-person shooters with a very story-based focus. So we're not just thrown into levels and then going through those levels and shooting enemies to get through them, as you would in most first-person shooters. We're also, it's about the experience, about experiencing the story, and the way the story is told through the environments and through characters around you. And also there's a huge focus on preserving your interactivity in the experience, so the story is not told through any sort of cutscene. After the first introductory cutscene, if there is one, you are kept within the experience entirely. So there is no storytelling cutscene after that initial scene. So you're constantly kept in your own, in your character, Gordon Freeman. And then after that intro scene, the game never wrests that control away from you to tell its story. It always tells its story while keeping you in the eyes and shoes of Gordon Freeman. So you're able to direct your own experience. You're able to keep control of what you're looking at and what you're doing throughout. That's one of the key differences in the way Episode or Half-Life 2 and any game in the Half-Life series really
Safe haven, it ain't.
presents its experience versus most other most other video games. Now, of course, other games have taken cues from the Half-Life series in terms of its storytelling, and done some similar types of presentations where it preserves that interactivity. But I think, pretty sure Half-Life, with Half-Life 1 and then Half-Life 2 iterating on that, is where this sort of storytelling was pioneered. Of course, Half-Life 2 was made. The Half-Life 2 games are made by a developer called Valve, so they've made experiences like. Let's see. They made, besides Half-Life, they've made Portal, they've made Counter-Strike, the Team Fortress games, they've Team Fortress 2, at least, and most recently they're working on Dota 2. And of course, I think I left this out of my discussion of Valve as a developer and a publisher last time. They, I don't know how I could have forgotten this, but they are the company behind the storefront Steam, which is widely important in and of itself. I think I didn't mention it just because I was talking about their history of making games and making and publishing games, not necessarily their other ventures, but now for sure Steam is one of their most important, if not the most important thing that they're doing. Sure, let's just clean up a little bit here. Now, I think in relevance to their future, Valve's future as a game maker, Steam is definitely important, and I think it'll come up a little bit later when I talk about what'll come after this Episode 2 experience. And this game was made in 2007. It's now 2015, and why we haven't seen an entry in the Half-Life series since then. I think it has to do a little bit with their current ventures, and that includes Steam. But I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, not necessarily now. So, as far as introducing the game, first-person shooter, storytelling focus, preserves interactivity, and made by Valve, prolific developer and company.
Okay, a communication center.
So now let's get into
Get out a message to my dad.
Episode 2 and how it continues after Episode 1, the storytelling that we're seeing now, and how it's ramping up from a beginning, especially after ending from Episode 1.
Damn. What now?
Can get into that stuff.
If I were to... Let me see if I can get it working again.
Now that we've seen some introductory, combat sort of things where I'm using the gravity gun against those enemies. Also important to note that we're not necessarily engaged against those enemies directly. They're like fighting each other.
This could take a while.
The antlines are fighting the zombies, and that allows us to kind of intervene and just play around with the combat without taking any direct damage. So as far as an introduction to combat and interacting with enemies, I think that's a good way to do it, in which we're not totally affronted, with an assault right away, where we're taken off guard. We can kind of ease into that combat experience by playing around with the objects around us and then destroying those enemies.
Thanks.
Of course, now we're introduced to just a very basic puzzle. Take the plug, push it in. Just all of this serves to get us familiar with the gravity gun. Now,
White Forest, this is Alyx.
let this little scene play before I continue on.
White Forest, are you there?
Alyx! My goodness, is that really you?
Yes, and Gordon too. We're okay. We made it out of City 17.
Alyx, thank God. I can hardly believe it.
Don't worry, Dad. We're fine. But something really strange is happening with the Citadel.
Oh yes, we've been monitoring the situation. The raw discharge of the meltdown has been focused into a coherent beam of portal energy.
It's the Combine. They're trying to open another gateway.
Yes, what you're seeing is the infancy of a super portal. If it attains full strength,
It'll be the 7-hour war all over again. Except this time we won't last 7 minutes.
My God. Gordon, what if that's why they were sending so much data from the Citadel? So that...
Data? From the Citadel?
In the control room, they were feeding huge volumes of data directly into the core destruction sequence.
Magnuson, did you hear that? I'll bet it's the Combine portal code.
Yes, I'm not deaf.
I downloaded the whole packet. They've been chasing us ever since.
Well, of course they have. You see, Kleiner, it's the linchpin of all of their plans.
Well, I can see that. I never said...
Somewhere in that sequence, they would have had to establish a connection with the far side. What you have there, young lady, is the specific contact code for the Combine overworld.
Good God.
If I'm right about this, and I have no reason to doubt myself, you are carrying the very code Dr. Mossman had hoped to recover. Now, how soon can you get here?
Well, we'll have to get our bearings, but we can
There
definitely...
is no time to waste. We'll need to step up the launch schedule. And now, as soon as you get here with the signature data, we'll encode the satellite and get the damn thing into orbit.
Get here as quickly as you can, you two.
Dad, you're breaking up. Come in. Dad, are you there? Dad!
Continue surface sector sweep. Remote compliance.
They're still tracking us.
Exterminate.
We need to keep
Passive
moving.
signature imprint. Mandate sublevel restriction.
Alright, so you can see what I was talking about there with the storytelling. Here we're seeing dialogue between all the various characters, and we're not taken out of our shoes, we're allowed to move around and look at whatever we want. We can pay attention to the dialogue there, or we can just look around the environment if we so choose. But I don't know, I figure might as well just look at what's going on, because that's the most interesting thing that's happening. Now, instead of doing things like showing a cutscene, it does kind of have to... The main method that it has to do in terms of storytelling is the game has to trap you in this room. You can do pretty much anything you want in terms of the direction of that experience and how you're consuming that information, but you're not free to just move around the world, because it is, you know, the purpose of the game, the motivation of the game is to try and tell you this story. And presumably if you're playing a Half-Life game, you are in it for the story and not necessarily in it just for the action. You're in it for all that it has to offer, the action, the puzzles, and the storytelling. So of course, yes, for that instance, the measure it has to do is it has to keep you in that room in order for you to experience that story moment. Other than that, though, you are free to interact with the experience and direct that storytelling experience as you so choose. The further step beyond that is to can take the interactivity away from you entirely, and that would be through a cutscene where just it just wants you to see what it wants you to see in the form of a movie. And these sort of storytelling methods, they have their advantages and disadvantages. That's why, and there are reasons why a lot of games these days haven't totally gone to the Half-Life 2 or Half-Life series style of storytelling, where there are no cutscenes and it keeps you in the shoes of the character. You're allowed to direct the experience as you see fit. For one thing, creating the scenarios and the situations where it's able to tell a story while you're still in your character, it's a little bit harder to do. It involves a different type of work, I would say, whereas a cutscene is a much more traditional style of storytelling. So people are very well, creators, not just people in general. Creators are very well versed in making cutscenes, and if you are to tell a story, then the cutscene is probably the most efficient way to do something like what Half-Life 2 does, where it has to construct a scenario, that little room where we see those characters talking to each other. It takes a little bit of work. It takes a different kind of work and different storytelling methods. There are a lot of different nuances to that storytelling, like for instance the fact that it has to trap you in that room just to make sure you are not wandering away from the pertinent information, that interesting action that's going on.
Nice. That did the trick. I can always count.
Those
on
are
you to
different
find
types
success.
of just the storytelling language
Dr.
is
Madison
slightly
has an old
different
rocket
than
up at White Forest. He's been hoping for
than
the
what a
day that
cutscene has to
launch
offer.
a
So
tap into the old array they set up at Black Mesa. But getting a launch off while the Combine was intact, there was just no way. I'm not sure how they'll use the satellite to shut down that portal, but I guess we'll find out when we get there.
as far as storytelling methods goes, the differences between, say, a cutscene and the way Half-Life 2 does it, the interactive storytelling methods, the differences and the different challenges that each of them have are the reasons why, you know, not every single game has had, or not every single game does what the Half-Life series does in terms of storytelling. But you know, as far as that, it just keeps, even to this day, it makes the Half-Life series special. It's like that marquee quality that they're able to go that extra mile. They're able to face those challenges of telling that story, preserving that interactivity, and because of those challenges, it just makes this experience special. Despite, ooh, that was a little glimpse at that whatever that was.
Did you hear that?
There's just a little glimpse that was always there. That's very creepy. That nice little thing. Like I could, maybe I would have noticed that earlier if I looked up. I mean, I'm still exploring. I'm still in a new area and looking around. It didn't occur to me to look up until I went up this hill, and that area is more in my vision. Now, of course, with the foreknowledge, you know, playing this again, playing the second time, this is not my first time through this game, I could have just looked up there and saw that a lot earlier. Of course, because of the interactive experience, that is totally possible, and it kind of transforms the way the game tells the story. The story is transformative in that way because of how it empowers you with that interactivity and agency. That's a totally different point than I was necessarily going after. Like the fact that games are transformative, the interactivity makes them more transformative than any other medium.
Can you figure out a way to get this gate open?
Just because, even in a very linear game like the Half-Life series, where, and that, by linear I mean we're going in a single path throughout the experience, and every time, every playthrough through that experience, you're going through that same path, going through that linear path. Despite that linearity, despite that form of linearity, the fact that we have control over our character and the direction, what we're looking at, where we're essentially co-directors of our storytelling experience. Little examples like that, like when we see that creature up on top of the building, makes the experience transformative. Now, what is the significance of that? Well, everybody's experience, even in a linear game like Half-Life 2, will be slightly different, and it's all due to the how they've decided to present their own experience. Right now we're trying to figure out a puzzle, and try to do that at the same time as talking about all this. Alright. As far as qualitative sort of criticism around that transformative experience, I like that because of how even those small differences in your interaction with the game changes your experiences. It makes your own playstyle affect your experience and make it that much more unique to yourself, despite the experience being a linear style of game. That's why I really like it. It just has that sort of impact. Alright, so we have press this button, and oh, see that there? I kind of knew that was there, but still gets me every single time that this creature was there the whole time. Now, what if I fell down this way? I would have seen that right away. The difference. There would have been a slight difference there in the way I'm presented with that sort of that jump. Also, my observations of the room, like, I don't think I've ever really noticed this guy hanging here. That kind of adds a little bit of extra creepy details about, you know, what is going on and how he got there and what it has to do with that creature. All right, we open the door and we can move on with the experience. Can't go back up that way, and can't go through this door. So the only way through is through here now. So I know not only like, you know, the transformative part of it, it's also the fact that the game itself is empowering you to take control of your experience. Like, sure, it wants you to tell the story that it wants to tell, but you aren't completely powerless to see the experience you want to see. You do have agency within that storytelling. It's one of my favorite parts of the way the Half-Life series tells a story. You have a real role in your character. Alright, so big moment there. Alyx is in trouble, and it's caused by that, whatever that creature was that we saw. We've been catching these little glimpses of. And also we're trapped here under this rubble.
The Alyx vans. What harm has come? Ah, the free man. I am pleased to see at least you are unharmed. But the Alyx vans, her condition is grave.
Alright. We'll talk about the significance of that a little bit.
Require more than I alone can conjure. Let me summon my kin.
I think once this dialogue is through, I can get into that a little bit more.
My kin will meet us at a sheltered location beneath the surface. We must move her there quickly. I will stabilize her if the free man will provide us with protection. Let us hurry.
Alright, so I think that one scene there
in the mines
is the one moment where we experience the least amount of interactivity, but you also see the lengths of what the game has to do to sort of motivate that, why we're unable to help there, why we're unable to help Alyx and, you know, prevent what's going on. Because of, you know, the actions of that creature, we were stuck under that rubble, and I think that motivated why I was unable to move and why I was trapped, helpless to be able to help our friend. So there are ways in which the game can still, you know, inhibit your movements and your ability to play a role in the action, but it has to be motivated by a real world, an in-game, in-world reason. Like, they have to really set it up, make sure there is a proper reason why we cannot have more interactivity, have more agency, and be helpless. Like, in order to make us helpless, it has to trap us under that rubble. That's the only way it can really motivate that. So I think as long as it's justified, just like it was in that scene.
You scared, Freeman.
then stripping away some interactivity in order to make a specific story theme happen makes sense. Of course, I don't think it should do that too often, but in terms of a big moment like that, I think that's fine because it is well motivated and justified by what is going on around you, what is happening to you as a character. Alright.
I will take her to my kin by another path.
Get our second weapon, and this time we actually do get the crowbar fairly early on. I think that's only fitting. That was only odd in the way episode 1 did it. We got it so late, like our second to last weapon. That was the oddity, really. In a Half-Life game, we should, just for tradition's sake, we should get the crowbar earlier on. And Half-Life 2 Episode 2 does that. We get the crowbar as one of our earlier weapons. Of course, the crowbar is just a very basic melee attack, and it serves as a basic way to interact with objects around you, just hitting things and breaking things. Simplest way possible. And of course, later on we get weapons and guns. Those are a little bit more complicated. So start with the simple, and then we progress to more complicated things later. I think that's why most Half-Life games we start with the crowbar, and in the later Half-Life games we start with the gravity gun as well. It's sort of simple interactivity with the environment in the same vein as the crowbar, but I guess an upgrade to the crowbar. I think in episode 1 I said that the gravity gun was the new crowbar in terms of how you can interact with the environment in a more simplistic way. So now we have both the gravity gun and the crowbar. Alright, so enough. I think that was enough of a discussion for the way the game tells its story. That storytelling method, keeping you in the shoes of Gordon Freeman. Let's see. Now we have to use this crank to turn the wheel. Power the elevator up. See what else is there. Alright, so we have to keep it held up or it falls down. Maybe what we need to do is go up a little bit higher. There we go, that's a little bit better. There's nothing else up there, but in order to make sure we can get to this level, we need to go a little bit higher and then jump off. Alright, so very quickly we're getting another weapon. Now I think this gets into a little bit of one of the issues with the whole episodic format in the way we have to get through this series of games, and particularly because it is a shooter with a variety of weapons. Every single episode, every single self-contained experience has to go through that ramp up through all of your various weapons every single time. So unless the experience is just going to give you all of your weapons up front because you had them in the last experience, it has to find a way like an arbitrary way for you to lose your weapons, everything that you had in the prior experience, because we had everything at the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 1. But I think because of that crash, we lost everything. Now we have to start from scratch yet again, which makes sense from a gameplay perspective. They don't want you to be too powerful and to overwhelm you with too many weapons right up front. Because of that, Episode 2 has to go through that whole weapon ramp up all over again. And I think complication that causes is that the weapon ramp up in a first-person shooter, in many ways, kind of defines the experience. Like you have to have that scenario where you only have your gravity gun in the beginning. You're only able to interact with the things around you, pick them up, throw them at each other. The game has to create a scenario in which it knows that you don't have any other weapons besides the gravity gun. And then, as you pick up more weapons, like, it has to do the same thing, assuming that you have those weapons. So, with every weapon pickup, it has to create a situation in which it suits the weapons that you have. So now that I have the pistol, it'll create a scenario in which I am getting comfortable with using the pistol. And it has to do that same thing with every single weapon that you pick up as you pick them up. So it creates its own constraints because of that weapon ramp up. The weapon ramp up in a first-person shooter means that you have to deal with that specific style of introducing weapons and making sure you have enough time to deal with them. I guess we can give that a shot. Use our pistol, I think. Can I? Or am I not going to be able to? Should I be able to shoot these things? I think so. No, I don't know. Maybe I have to go down here. So right now, because we've just picked up the crowbar and the pistol, a lot of what the environments are focused around are going to be around me using my pistol and the crowbar. Alright, I used a lot of my bullets to try and take out these things, but I was gonna be much closer to them anyway. So I guess what I'm getting at is that the weapon ramp up creates its own constraints, and the fact that Half-Life as a series moved to a sort of episodic, more shorter, self-contained experiences. It has to deal with that weapon ramp up more often than it would have needed to traditionally. Like if with Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, those were longer experiences, and they were released farther apart from each other. So having to start over with nothing and then gradually attaining weapons makes sense in those larger experiences, because a larger experience will give you enough time, or will give the game enough time to give each weapon its own environment for you to mess around with, its own level, essentially, for you to get a handle on those weapons. But when you create much shorter experiences that are close together, you start seeing those constraints. You see how that weapon ramp up is basically defining the gameplay progression, the level progression, and how those levels have to be constructed, because they have to be relevant to the weapons that you have, relevant to your ability to interact with the environment around you. And in a much shorter experience, each weapon gets a lot less time, much smaller levels for you to be able to familiarize yourself with them. So it causes a lot of different various issues with pacing, and as well as repetition, similarities between the experiences. Like because the weapon ramp-ups are fairly similar, like your progression of weapons are similar in episode 1 compared to episode 2, there are going to be a lot of similarities between the way you experience episode 1 and episode 2. The levels, concerning the gravity gun and the crowbar are going to present similar challenges. And that becomes a little bit more apparent with these episodes, because they are shorter experiences that are released closer together. You start seeing through that illusion in its interactive experience and that storytelling. You start seeing behind, the design of that, and it brings you out of the experience when you start seeing through the seams that way. It presents a lot of it's a complex issue, and I don't think I can really discuss it in a very coherent way, while playing it live. But I think the basics are that. All right, let's try and deal with this thing. Where'd it go? The basics are that because I have to go through that weapon ramp up, gathering weapons as I go, the nature of the storytelling and the levels around me, the levels that I'm experiencing, have to be concerned with that weapon ramp up every single time, and that presents a problem when the experience it's a shorter experience, like the Half-Life 2 episodes, because they have those shorter experiences have less time to dedicate to each weapon as you pick them up. Alright, so fighting these things. Alright, now we have the shotgun. Now we're going to be presented with a scenario in which we're going to mostly be focusing on using the shotgun. So yeah, the shotgun is fairly effective against these antlion creatures, as they've always been in every Half-Life game. As well as we also get the grenades. See how fast we're getting these weapons? About as fast as we got them in episode 1. But I think it's because this is episode 2, because we're experiencing it again, that the ramp up of weapons, collecting every single weapon again, is a lot more apparent because of how we're naturally comparing episode 2 to episode 1. In episode 1, didn't really notice it as much, I don't think. Or we didn't have any real reason to notice how the weapon ramp up was, so short. Each weapon wasn't really given a whole lot of time in terms of the player or me familiarizing myself with them. So they each got their own little level as you pick them up. In episode 2, because comparing it to episode 1, I think that's why it's a little bit more apparent now. Of that repetition, we're experiencing it again. Like, hey, this sort of feels familiar. Like we're getting all the weapons over again, learning them as well. That's why it's a little bit more obvious, because of that repetition. Now we're getting the Magnum weapon, the revolver. See how quickly we're going through them. So we have a little scenario in which we're using the shotgun. Didn't even really get to use the grenades. Now we already have the revolver. I think because of the speed at which we're picking it up, we can make a reasonable conclusion that the game itself realizes that this very same problem. And rather than, you know, going through that weapon ramp up, making sure we have, you know, a large level for each weapon dedicated to each. I think it's just trying to get through that ramp up as fast as possible, get that out of the way, so that just so we can have a more interesting experience later on that isn't totally focused around that weapon ramp up. But of course, it still has to get through that. Eventually, it has to get through that some way. So even if it's going to go through it really fast, it still has to get through it. So, let's see. Yeah, I want to use the shotgun here. Fairly effective. Where'd it go? There we go. As long as I have bullets for the shotgun, I think I'm going to go just use that. Oh, where was it? There? Alright, so we are getting through it. Let's see how many weapons we have. We have the pistol, revolver, shotgun. Still have a few more weapons to pick up. So the weapon ramp up isn't quite done yet. We're still in it. But still apparent the game is trying to get through it faster than episode 1 did, for sure. And I think once it's out of the way, it can form its own experience to its own. It doesn't have to dedicate the entire experience to that weapon ramp up. I think that the fact that the game is almost aware of itself, aware of that weapon ramp up problem itself, and trying to get it over with, that lends credence to what I'm trying to say here. Maybe I am totally off base, and so a few little extra items there. Right now that I've discussed the whole thing about the weapon ramp up and how it defines a lot of the environmental designs and the challenges that the game has to throw at you in the beginning, I think I can just appreciate the level design here. I mean, this is definitely not like anything we've ever seen in the Half-Life series. So even though we are experiencing a familiar territory in that in the weapon ramp up, at least the environment, it's able to do that while bringing us to an environment we've never seen. We are at the heart of an antlion den, essentially, or a nest, I guess, for a more appropriate term. A lot of these, what are these things called? Barnacles. A lot of these here too. Gotta be a little bit careful. I want to appreciate that this environment is so different compared to everything we've seen in Half-Life 2. A lot of urban environments in that game. A lot of, you know, Eastern European cityscapes. And now that we're away from that stuff, we're out of City 17. We're seeing a lot more natural environments. And I think that, as far as the environments go, Half-Life 2 Episode 2 is much more focused around the natural environments in that world that we haven't really seen before. Right, so there are multiple ways we can deal with this. We can preoccupy them with these boards and just walk around them. Or we can shoot them directly. I guess I went with a mixture of both. Perfectly good ways to deal with these enemies. And use our environment to our advantage. We don't necessarily have to destroy the barnacles, we can just walk around them, but can use them as ways to deal with the antlions. Also, it's just as far as a graphical effect, you know, for 2007, the way these walls looks, the way these walls look, the way they shimmer, and the way the light reflects off of these walls. Great use of the technology of the time. Oh no. Creating something that we haven't really seen before. Not just in Half-Life 2, not just in the Half-Life 2 series, but also in games in general. Very unique looking environment here. Shotgun isn't a great long-range weapon, but a little bit faster than switching up. Important little detail there that the antlions aren't really good at swimming. You can get them trapped in that water there. Yeah, you can look at caverns like this. Look natural, they look really nice. Whatever graphical effects, shaders that they're using to make these glistening walls. Very well done, very well designed. Great job in presenting an environment that very unique environment. Especially important, I think, as I said, when considering that weapon ramp-up problem. The tools we're using and the way we interact with the world is familiar, but it's doing it in a way in which it's doing it in an environment that we're unfamiliar with. Looks like these things take 2 hits. Can we get in there? I'm not sure. From here we can. Oh, that might have been a good way to... good vantage point to deal with those guys. Continue on. Yeah, really... to sum up all my comments on the environment, they just look really cool. I'm not sure what kind of graphical effects they're using, but yeah, very impressive for the time, for 2007. And yeah, even though the engine, the source engine that this game is using for its graphical effects, it's even in 2007 it was starting to show its age. Still remarkable that they were able to achieve these effects using that old engine. Still able to keep it fresh and new back then. I have to wonder, since it's several years after, almost 8 or 9 years after this game released, whether Valve would still use the source engine for another entry in the Half-Life series. I can't imagine that they would. Have to use some sort of, more up-to-date, relevant engine.
We got lions! You idiot. That's Gordon Freeman. The Vortigaunt said he was on the way. Dr. Freeman, Alyx Vance is over here. The Vort's trying to patch her up.
Alright, so this right here is one of my favorite scenarios. This level here we're going to experience soon. Get into that once we experience this here.
Freeman.
See where Alyx was taken.
It is well. Alyx Vance clings to the margins. My kin are still some distance away. For now, we must not be disturbed.
Yeah, well, about that. As long as you're down here, Freeman, maybe you can give us a hand. Let me show you how the antlion sensors work. Got some supplies over here if you need them. Health and ammo, that sort of thing.
Aha. So now, got the machine gun. Surely we're going to be using that. It's going to be a, this environment will be suited for all the weapons that we've gotten so far, including the machine gun.
This sensor will light up if an antlion's coming down this tunnel. More lights mean more antlions. When a tunnel lights up, we move a few turrets in front of it. Pretty simple, eh, Doc?
Hey, Doc. On your way here, you weren't followed, were you?
Don't listen to him, Doc. We're on edge because this place is riddled with antlions.
The Vort says as long as we don't step on their grubs, they shouldn't hear us this far from the nest.
Yeah, well, that's a theory I'd rather not test. We're down to our last 2 turrets, and even these are held together by baling wire and duct tape at this point. Nice to have them in a pinch, but I wouldn't exactly trust them with my life. Hey, Griggs, you might want to show Dr. Freeman where we keep the supplies, huh?
Oh, yeah. Down there by the Vort. Everything you need for
Yep, already got some of those.
They're coming. One light.
Let's move.
All right. So I like this this particular scenario here. It's defending Alyx from these antlion attacks. Also trying to utilize all of our weapons and utilizing these defense turrets at the same time. You also have to keep in mind that we have also 2 AI dudes on our side as well. So for this, as we're working on this scenario, on this environment, right now we don't have to do anything because the turret and the AI companions, they're taking care of everything just fine. But as the difficulty ramps up, presented with much more difficult antlion attacks that are happening simultaneously, like, okay, we have one right there now.
We got the breach.
We'll be okay as long as they stick to one tunnel.
Dr. Freeman, you take care of the turrets.
Right now we were faced with fairly simple ones: one tunnel, one light. Light attacks from these antlions from one tunnel. Gonna get more and more complicated later on. Right now I don't have to fire my gun. The turret and these AI partners are enough. It's not going to be the case for very long. So the reason why I like this particular scenario is because of how it's like not just combat, but it's it's a puzzle at the same time. All right, 2 lights at 24. Let's bring the guns on this side. We gotta balance. I have to figure out how to balance my available resources to be able to deal with these attacks. These both turrets, and I think I don't need necessarily to use my own gun here. The turrets will take care of them. As well as my AI companions. Alright.
Come on, try to keep up. Let's just stay here.
Where else? Alright, so now we have 2 tunnels.
Well, Doc. Hey, if you see a bug on me, how about you try to get it off next time? You're only like 5 feet tall.
Let's go ahead and do turret each. Since those guys have that tunnel, I think I'll deal with this one.
What?
Alright.
Forget it.
We got the breach.
Got one over there, and and over here. So if those guys are going to take that one, I think I'm just going to have to try and run between these two. I know the turrets themselves won't be able to take out all of them. Trying to get this thing, there we go. You guys are having trouble.
I got 10. Yeah, well, we all got 10. There's hundreds.
Okay, so we have one with 2 lights there.
What's wrong with that?
Alright, so this one I think we're gonna have to... I'm gonna have to do this one on my own. Without any turret help. Totally doable. So far, so good. Oh, they're seriously having trouble handling this on their own. Another reason why I really like this particular scenario is that presented with a ramp-up warning, and then you have to quickly figure out a solution to that before they come. So I think, you know, tunnels covered with turrets, covered with AI partners, and then I have to cover one tunnel as well. So far, so good. A single turret is better than these dudes. Alright, so now what? 2 lights there. Let's see. I think with the 2 lights I need to give them a turret because they won't be able to handle it on their own. And I have to deal with these two at the same time. Let's see. This is where things get hectic. Ooh, boy. I thought that was going to be farther away, but I guess I caught one of the antlines a little bit too close to me. Set up some of the more of these mines. I think I need to give them a turret with the 2 lights. They'll try and take him down from here. Main thing I have to contend with is the reload. I have to constantly be reloading. For now, we have no turrets to rely upon. All we have are our...
Why are you so vague? I think we misunderestimated. Look alive. Get ready. Okay, get ready. Free lights. This is gonna be bad.
Ah, little twist.
Hey, supports, they made it!
Deliberately sets you up for
We killed many antlions.
for a big battle, and then you get a little bit of relief there.
We must attend to the Alyx lands. There is no time. More antlions approach. We shall quiet them.
Right, so we lost our turrets, but we gained these 3 Vortigaunts, and they're definitely going to be much more useful now. So we got the biggest attack for sure so far. We have the music picking up too. Alright, Gordon, reload. Reload. Alright. Big battle.
Now to the next matter.
Thanks to the Vorts, I think, evened out the odds. These guys are awesome.
Your injuries are grave.
I wish I could talk about that a little bit more, but I think we're going to have a major
We require
story scene right here, so I got to let that play out a little bit. For sure.
the extract. Yes. Agree.
Okay, we're going to have... Not quite yet. We have to get the extract and then the big story scene.
In the sacred nectarium. But I cannot hope to bring it back alone. We must remain to keep the Alyx Vance alive. Please, Freeman, join me. Yes, take the Freeman. There is no finer companion. Well stated.
Alright, so... Yeah, this whole level here, this onslaught of antlion, the antlion encounter in Half-Life 2, one of my favorite levels in this game, just because of how it is constructed, about how we have these lights. The lights are important, and we have resources all around the environment. It's all about using those resources. It's all about using those resources to the maximum potential, balancing, you know, the turret placement, recognizing where the AI partners are going, and then covering the other tunnels. And you're essentially presented with a problem, and you're given a few seconds to try and solve that problem, and then gotta hope your solution is enough to deal with the onslaught. Very clear ramp up in that in the difficulty there, and then culminates in an exciting final encounter. All the tunnels with those 3 lights. Working with the Vortigaunts and everything. Very very well put together encounter there, for sure.
Grim Pinata.
And then top it all off, we in that final encounter with the 3 lights, have the music.
Finish them, Freeman.
Music really picks up, and in that final encounter, makes it all the more exciting. That's one thing I haven't really discussed in previous playthrough in episode 1 is how most of the experience the soundtrack is just the environment around us. It's presents its own style and tone. Most of the experience doesn't need music to back it. Relies on the strength of the sound effects, like we're seeing in this cave, where most of the soundtrack to the experience are these the creaks and squeaks of those grubs, as well as the background noise of the antlions buzzing. I suppose I don't know if you can hear that stuff.
Beware the asset lines.
But in very specific scenes, the soundtrack then comes up. The music, rather, not just the soundtrack. The music comes in and creates that, highlights that climactic moment. So for the 3 lights, we got that music there. Really good music. There we go. Get a little bit closer. Oh, there we go. Keep in mind that these things can fly and jump around. There we go. Right, so the music, not always there, there isn't a constant music in the background, but it's there when it's important. It's there when it wants to highlight a climactic moment. I think that's when they're most effective.
Expect elevated resistance as we proceed. The sad fate of these others is our good fortune.
Aha. I think that's been, as far as the music goes, that's the way that Half-Life 2 games have presented their soundtrack since the beginning, I think. Use it when they're most effective. I think the reason why it does that, why there isn't a constant background music all the time, why that it doesn't utilize music all the time, is that it doesn't want to overdo it. It wants to, when that music plays up, when the music starts up, it wants you to know that the scene is an important scene. Oh boy. Gonna let that grenade go. There we go. Still looking for the extract.
What did the Freeman expect to find down there? Truly, the Freeman leaves no path unexplored.
Make sure we get every resource that we can. Alright, I think just to summarize the discussion on the music in a more coherent way, music doesn't, the game doesn't over rely on music to, determine the tone of the experience. It uses them when it's most important. I guess you could say the game practices restraint on the music, and brings it in to highlight the climactic scene. We saw that example there. And when the music does happen, that's when we see lots of see if the music is actually very good at the same time. It's not just... It isn't withholding that music because the music is bad. So even though the music has been very, very good, most of the music in the Half-Life games has been very good, remarkably practices that restraint. And I think in general I like the way it uses music to determine its tone, is because of that restraint. Makes it all the more special when it does bring that music in.
I will observe with great anticipation.
Aha, so we have a puzzle to work through.
Freeman will find a way to open that gate so that we may proceed together.
I like this little environmental detail. It shows like it in and of itself is like a hint, right? You can use this thing right here to attack the zombies. Right now there are no zombies to attack though, but okay, so presented with a puzzle here. We know we have to go down, I think. Nothing up. I don't think there's anything up there, no. There is something down there, looks like. So, gotta use weight, I think. Weigh everything down. Ah. Suitably weighed down. Yeah, very simple puzzle. If we take this out, I don't want to be trapped up there. There were some things that I wanted to... crates that I missed, I guess. But not terribly important. There we go. Let the zombies own... What are they? The Zombine's own grenades. Take him down. I know for sure that... There we go. Don't need guns, can just use the crowbar. Alright. Let's check out what's over here. Still trying to figure out that puzzle. Aha. So, controls are behind this gate. That's the only way up. Figure out how to get up there. Very similar puzzle to the last one, but we kind of have to figure it out in reverse. So, gotta weigh this one down. Where else? One more Right here. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna weigh it down so that we have time to make it onto the platform as it goes up. So now it should go up a little bit more slowly. Now I can remove the weight. And there we go. Heading back up. Uh-oh. Okay. Kind of looking around for objects to throw at them, but only crates. Let's just open the doors now.
The Freeman is an invaluable companion.
There we go. Now we can continue on.
Pity the generator that requires supporting.
All these crates here. Kind of little all those crates there. Trying to harp on your read. Present you with a quick thinking scenario to try and you can collect your stuff, but then you have to quick on your feet, get the heck out of there. Oh boy. Another one of those quick thinking scenarios. Alright. Still seeing a lot of that, the fruits of the AI experimentation that we saw in Episode 1, carrying out Episode 2, where the different factions of antlions fighting the zombies works in our favor. We can have them fight each other rather than use up a lot of bullets to fight them.
What next in the parade of constant obstacles?
Poor Vortigaunts can't climb ladders. Figure out a way for him to continue on. Alright, so wait, can he climb a ladder? Is that what I heard there? Is he climbing a ladder? Aha. Okay, so the Vortigaunts can climb a ladder, but I don't know. Perhaps it doesn't want to. Perhaps the game couldn't have an animation of the Vortigaunt climbing a ladder, so it just waits till you're in a room that you can't look back, and it just has that sound effect. It's a nice little trick, I suppose, when you don't want to animate a complicated model going up a ladder. Okay, so what is going on here? Am I just supposed to go down here? I think so. Oh boy. fell pretty darn far. Anything down here? I don't think so. Whoa.
No pit would be complete without a freeman climbing out of it.
Yeah, it's just supposed to emphasize, hey, the Vortigaunts are pretty awesome. Look what he just did. Yeah, it was kind of neat. Little roller coaster ride experience there. I don't think there's any need to go that way unless thoroughly exploring. Just going to continue on here. Still looking for that extract. Man, that extract is far away.
Behold, across the chasm. The immense repellent device promises to cease from endless anti-lion attacks. If the Freeman is in agreement, let us find our way into that vibratory haven.
Yeah, we were up there looking down over here before. Making progress through the environment, hopefully find that extract soon. Alyx's life hangs in the balance. Alright, I definitely like this scenario here. Can use this area to repel the ant lions and take them down. Alright, we're seeing an interesting little twist in the interaction here.
It is good now
That, see, the antlions can't come in this area, but the zombies can. Because the zombies are not perturbed by the vibrations, so aren't exactly safe in this area here. Is there anything up here? Ladders here for some reason. Aha! Like a little shooting gallery area. See anything in here? No. Not quite. Just more stuff. Alright, so slow-moving elevator, we have to survive whatever enemies will come our way.
Freeman, beware!
Oh boy. Almost here, not quite here yet.
Save yourself! I have the situation where it is. That lift is... Oh! I will join you!
Ah, there's another lift for him. There he comes. Meanwhile, the AI are battling each other. Zombies versus the antlions for all eternity.
Observe how they fight on below, heedless of our escape. Well,
Yeah, that was definitely a very very interesting interaction there with the AI. How you have one environmental advantage against one of the enemies, but then you have to balance that out. One of the enemies don't care. The zombies don't care about that vibration. So yeah, you might be sort of safe. You're half safe in that what do they call? What is that? A hammer vibration device wards off the antlions, but not the zombies. I hope that they fight each other. Any zombies that get through to you, you still have to deal with.
A poignant scene. An eternity's repose. It brings peaceful thoughts, does it not?
You know, this area, since we're in the antlion den, or the nest, since they're insects, refer to them as nests, it could just be antlions all the time. I really like that little twist there, bringing in the zombies as a way to see how they interact. Makes our dealings with the antlions a little bit more complicated. Whoa.
The Guardian's presence guarantees an awareness of larval clusters. They are commonly posted near the young.
Now we gotta deal with the Guardians, I guess the queens. Seen them a few times, I think, in episode 1. We had to deal with them. Definitely tough enemies. Anything over here? No, not necessarily. I think just go this way. Also, really haven't noted how we haven't had a Vortigaunt as a companion AI before. I think the series has been building them up to be really formidable characters within the world, very capable. This is kind of episode 2 is rewarding your patience and finally letting you team up with one. Seem to be very capable. Also, their ability set are very very cool. So you're not just fighting alongside humans in this game. Now that we allied with the Vortigaunts, we get some really interesting AI partners. In a big way, of course, in the turret battle with the antlions before, and then of course the now we're rolling with one of them throughout the antlion nest here. So we are very close.
This shaft connects to the chamber above, where my kin sustain the Alyx vents. Once we have the extract, we can rejoin them quickly, provided we can restore elevator function.
Okay, so
how shall we descend?
So I think this segment here, we're approaching a big story moment. I think I have to go down essentially manually, jumping down over there, making my way back up. But this is a good point to end the stream for today, I think. A good cutoff point, transition point, so we can continue right here where we left off in the next stream. So yeah, definitely some very interesting stuff in episode 2. A lot of things to talk about right up front. compared to episode 1, you can see I think episode 2, more complex experience, trying out various things, and the environments are, I think, the biggest showcase of how different an experience Half-Life 2 episode 2 is compared to the rest of the Half-Life 2 story so far, or even Half-Life in general. There might be some cases in Half-Life 1 where we can make some more comparisons to what's going on here. No, in Half-Life 1 there weren't a lot of natural environments. I think the episode 2 is where we've seen these natural environments for the first time, and that's where it's showing how different it is, I guess, compared to the other episodes. But we're also seeing culmination of a lot of that experimentation we saw in previous Half-Life 2 experiences, especially with the AI in episode 1. Seeing a continuation of that stuff in episode 2. Of course, they were still dealing with that same weapon ramp up as well. I've seen a lot of that in the beginning here. We're still actually not done. We haven't quite gotten all of the weapons just yet, so we're still technically in that weapon ramp up. We got most of them. I think the majority of the normal weapons in the game in Half-Life 2. We've got those, like a bunch of them right up front. So a portion of that weapon ramp up, I think it wanted to get out of the way so that it can go on to its own sort of its own unique environments with this antlion nest, and it doesn't want to dwell too much on having you get used to each weapon in its own time. So brief periods in which it's letting you do that, but doing it much more quickly than any of the other Half-Life 2 games. Trying to get that out of the way. So while that is a problem, I can recognize that that it's trying to get that done so it can do its own thing, and that's a lot of what episode 2 has to do. And I think can discuss that a little bit more later on. Right now, I think I'm gonna wrap up the episode, this part in my playthrough, so I can continue on later. All right, so thank you very much for watching. If you want to catch up on the playthrough so far, you can watch at the archives. You can watch all of my episodes where I play Half-Life 2 Episode 1, all the parts there. Can bring you up to speed to my playthrough of Episode 2. And that'll be on my YouTube channel, of course. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/yamstersam. And of course, you can also follow me on Twitter at yamstersam. And if you want to continue watching me live on Twitch, and see my live commentary of this, you can go over to my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/yamstersam. So, with that, I will say goodbye, and we'll see you right here in the next part in my playthrough of Episode 2. So,